I want to talk about why coding is important beyond data, and it's because of the way that stories get told. So this is my favorite all-time interactive. The BBC did a series on the secret life of cats in broadcast, and then they did a whole interactive side to it. So they actually put GoPros on cats with geo-trackers, and you can follow like 10 cats with different personalities about what they do through the day. That's amazing. That's such cool storytelling, right? And it's not just data, right? Let's not just talk about data. But of course, there is data, right? And the opportunity gap is a ProPublica effort that really kind of changed my perspective, because you can do a really personal storytelling, but also get a national picture, so you can actually see how the school next to you, whether they've got school lunches or what's happening in a big city where things might be a little bit more different from where you are. And you see sort of just charts, right? So the first was just database-driven storytelling. This is a dynamic chart where you can enter your zip code. By the way, Andrew Devigal did one of the first interactives in 1995, the Chicago Tribune, that was all hand-coded and monstrous. So he really has been part of this for a long time. There are also news games. News games, this is before you guys, a lot of you guys in the room, but this was an Oregon Trail adapted for getting to the polls, right? This is a game, right? Requires coding. It's a totally different kind of interactive. And of course, there are quizzes. For 2 years in a row, this was in the top 5 of New York Times traffic. I argue that this has news value because it tells you something you didn't know, right, about your world. And this was just a quiz, and it actually got my dialect down to 5 miles from my house, which concerned me because I don't think I sound like that much of a New Yorker. But anyway, right? So all of what this did is it's created, and I think maybe rightly so, a myth of sort of what the hacker journalist can do in a newsroom, right? This magical person who can combine storytelling with programming language. And this is a slide that's the Knight Foundation put out that's actually based on a real person named Brian Boyer, who came in from outside the field of journalism. And he went to journalism school at Northwestern, and the cool hacker is a guy who is wearing headphones and a t-shirt with code, and then the nerdy reporter is wearing the V-neck sweater and has glasses, and then that somehow transforms into a beard, which I don't really get the calculus, but this is, a data visualizer, a pragmatic, great journalist 2.0. In all of the pictures I've shown you so far, it's all been men. So, right, this was sort of the vision. I thought really that this new approach to storytelling, data visualization, interactives was really just sort of pushing our understanding of the world in a way that we were just becoming more informed and more educated. And there was this great potential for traditional journalism to reclaim its authority because it was telling stories that were web-enabled and really just sort of bring people back into the fold to see the value of what journalists could do in a digital age. And, I knew we were polarized. We are, but I wasn't sure really what the implications were. And I think the way that data journalism and interactive journalism got positioned as the salvo of journalistic authority was really dangerous. So here's, Nate Silver's manifesto when he started 538, right? He was the guy that predicted the election correctly in 2008 and 2012, right? One of the potential advantages of data journalism is that it generalizes better than traditional approaches, particularly as data sets increase in scale to become larger and more complex, right? Data journalism clarifies the generalities, right? And that was sort of the perspective, and everybody wanted to do more data journalism and more interactive storytelling. There are serious problems with this, right? I don't know, it depends on your political perspective how you would have interpreted this at the time, but this is a really slimmed down version of what was happening, right? I had friends in DC who were refreshing the Nowcast before they went to bed at night, and they're like, oh, phew, okay, Nate Silver still says that Hillary Clinton is winning, or maybe they get fired up, less so in DC, about sort of what was happening on the right. But this belies the sophistication and problems in the polling But also, like, this is a pretty satisfying presentation of the data, which is concerning, right? Okay, this happened. Everyone's like, oh, we're so surprised. This is a Dewey beats Truman moment. The data was bad. And to some extent, that is true, because actually the decline in the news industry meant that fewer local news organizations were doing consistent polls. So statewide polling was probably worse than it's ever been. Nationally, the polling wasn't, it was about as off as the Romney-Obama election, so consistently off. But it's not like people doing this. If you go back and read the Upshot or Silver, right, they know this. They account for it. These are these extensive meditations on issue with polling data. But that's not something you see here, right? It's a really simplified presentation. You get to engage. You can see percentages, right? That's not what's being narrated. And it's continuing to happen, right? This is I think this is actually the Real Clear Politics map. But this makes Virginia look very comfortably blue, which is not the headline you see in the Post, right? The prose headline is Clinton edges Trump in Virginia. This will probably be the graphic that you see in your Facebook feed, right? And that belies the sophistication, right? And the difficulty of interpretation in that words still matter a lot, right? And quantification doesn't necessarily lead to clarity.